She was 24 and carrying the kind of loneliness that made even crowded places feel empty. Most mornings, Ava slept inside her old gray hatchback behind a closed grocery store on the edge of town. The seat smelled like stale coffee and damp clothes. Every night, she folded the same thin blanket across her knees and listened to trucks groaning past the highway. 3 months earlier, her fiancé, Daniel, had left for a construction job in another state. He still called her every evening, still told her he loved her. But Ava had stopped telling him the truth. She never mentioned the eviction notice, never mentioned the pawned jewelry, never mentioned how close she was to losing everything. Then one rainy Tuesday, she found a newspaper ad taped to a laundromat wall. Old Blackthorn Hotel. For sale, $10. Cash only. Everyone in town knew the place. Nobody went near it anymore. People said the hotel was cursed after a fire decades ago, said guests heard footsteps in empty halls, said lights turned on by themselves at night. Ava almost laughed at the ridiculous price. But desperation changes the way fear feels. 3 days later, she signed the papers. And as the old owner handed her a rusted brass key with trembling fingers, he quietly said something that stayed in her mind the entire drive there. Some doors inside that hotel were closed for a reason. But what she didn't know was, the hotel had been waiting for someone exactly like her. And before the first night was over, Ava would hear something moving behind the walls. Something that sounded almost human. Before we continue, if stories like this pull you into another world, stories about hidden places, forgotten lives, and impossible discoveries, take a moment to subscribe. You're going to want to stay until the end of this one. Ava grew up in a narrow brick house beside the railroad tracks in a fading Pennsylvania town. Her grandfather, Walter Hale, repaired watches for nearly 50 years. Tiny clocks, pocket watches, broken wall timers people forgot in attics. The whole house carried the smell of machine oil and cedar wood. As a little girl, Ava would sit beside him while rain tapped softly against the windows. Walter's hands always moved carefully, slowly, like time itself deserved respect. Broken things talk, he used to tell her. You just have to listen long enough. Her grandmother, Eleanor, ran a tiny bakery. From the kitchen, warm cinnamon bread, cooled on towels every morning before sunrise. The family never had money, but the house felt alive. Old radio music drifted through the hallways. Floorboards creaked softly at night. Tea kettles hissed in winter mornings. Ava remembered one specific evening more than any other. She was 9 years old. The power had gone out during a snowstorm. Candles flickered across the kitchen, while Eleanor kneaded dough beside the stove. Walter sat quietly repairing an old silver watch under candlelight. Then he looked at Ava and asked, "What do you think people leave behind after they're gone?" Ava shrugged. Money, she guessed. Walter smiled faintly. No pieces of themselves. At the time, she didn't understand what he meant. Years later, those words would come back to her inside the Blackthorn Hotel. When Ava was 14, the bakery closed. A giant supermarket opened nearby and slowly destroyed every small business on the street. Eleanor tried to stay cheerful, but Ava noticed the changes. The shorter grocery lists, the unpaid bills hidden beneath cookbooks, the silence at dinner. Walter continued repairing watches, though customers became fewer every year. Then came the winter. He got sick. The hospital smelled like bleach and cold plastic curtains. Ava hated that smell for years afterward. Walter passed away quietly during a snowstorm almost identical to the one from her childhood memory. After the funeral, Eleanor changed. She still baked sometimes, but the music stopped playing in the house. The rooms became quieter, lonelier. Ava took 2 jobs after high school instead of attending college. She stocked shelves at night and worked mornings at a diner off Route 11. That diner was where she met Daniel. He was kind in a simple way. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of man who noticed when someone looked tired. For 3 years, he loved her carefully. He fixed her leaking sink, brought soup when she was sick, rubbed warmth into her freezing hands during winters. And Ava truly loved him back. But deep inside her lived an old fear. The fear of becoming a burden. The fear of losing everything the way her grandparents had. So when Eleanor died the previous spring, Ava inherited almost nothing except a tin box filled with recipes, old watch tools, and unpaid taxes on a family house. She sold the house within months. and afterwards something inside her quietly broke. Daniel proposed 6 months later beside a frozen lake. It should have been the happiest night of her life. Instead, Ava cried afterward in the bathroom of a roadside diner. Not because she didn't love him, because she did. Too much. She feared he would eventually discover how unstable her life really was. The debt, the panic attacks, the collection notices. So she smiled through it all, pretended everything was fine. Then Daniel got offered a high-paying construction contract in Colorado. 6 months, he promised. Then we start over somewhere better. Ava encouraged him to go. She even packed his bags. But after he left, everything collapsed faster than she expected. Rent doubled. Her second job disappeared. The car nearly died twice. And eventually, she became the kind of person who counted coins before buying bread. By the time she saw the newspaper ad for Blackthorn Hotel, Ava had only $18 left. Buying a haunted hotel for $10 sounded insane. But losing her mind and losing hope sometimes feel almost the same. The road to Blackthorn Hollow twisted through dense forest and abandoned mining towns. Rain covered the windshield in silver streaks. Ava drove for nearly 4 hours before the hotel finally appeared beyond the trees. It was enormous, far larger than she expected. The Blackthorn Hotel stood atop a hill overlooking a dead lake covered in fog. Its windows were dark, half-broken, watching. The building carried scars everywhere. Burn marks above the eastern wing, collapsed balconies, vines swallowing entire walls. A crooked sign near the entrance squealed softly in the wind. Blackthorn Hotel. 1 letter missing. The moment Ava stepped out of the car, she noticed the silence. No birds, no distant traffic, only wind moving through dead branches. The front doors groaned open with almost no pressure at all. Inside smelled like wet with old dust and something faintly metallic beneath it, like rust or dried blood. Her flashlight swept across the lobby, covered furniture, broken chandeliers, a massive staircase disappearing into darkness. Then she saw it, an old brass concierge bell sitting untouched on the front desk. Ava stared at it for several seconds, then slowly pressed it. The sound echoed through the hotel, clear, sharp, and somewhere upstairs, something answered, a single heavy footstep. That first night, Ava slept in the manager's office beside the lobby, or at least she tried to. The hotel never stayed quiet long enough. Pipes rattled, doors creaked, soft thuds echoed above her ceiling. Around 2 a.m., she heard what sounded like dragging chains somewhere down the eastern hallway. She nearly called the police, but embarrassment stopped her. What would she even say? Hello, I bought a haunted hotel for $10, and now it sounds haunted. Instead, she grabbed her flashlight. The hallway wallpaper peeled like old skin. Her footsteps stirred dust across faded carpets. The chain sound stopped abruptly near room 217. The door was slightly open. Inside sat an old wheelchair facing the window. Nothing else. No chains. No person. Just a wheelchair. Ava backed away slowly, then froze. On the wall beside the doorway, someone had scratched words directly into the paint. Don't listen after midnight. The letters looked old. Very old. The next morning, Ava met the only nearby resident, an elderly mechanic named Frank, who lived beside the old gas station 2 miles downhill. Frank brought her gasoline and stared at the hotel with visible discomfort. You staying there alone? He asked. Ava nodded. Frank hesitated, then quietly said, People hear things in that place. Like what? Depends who's listening. He refused to explain further, but before leaving he handed her a rusted ring of keys. Found these years ago near the boiler room. That night Ava explored deeper into the hotel. She discovered old guest ledgers covered in soot from the fire decades earlier. Most pages were ruined, except one. A single name appeared repeatedly across dozens of entries. Evelyn Vale. No checkout date. No address. Just the same elegant signature over and over. Ava kept turning pages. Every few weeks, Evelyn checked into a different room, stayed several days, then vanished again. The entry stopped 3 months before the fire. That was strange enough, but stranger still. Some signatures looked written by a shaking hand, as if Evelyn had become terrified near the end. Days passed. Ava began cleaning small sections of the hotel to make it livable. Dust clouds filled sunlight like smoke. She repaired broken pipes, cleared rotten furniture, opened boarded windows. The work exhausted her, but for the first time in years, she felt something unexpected. Purpose. Still, the hotel remained unsettling. Every evening, at exactly 11:14 p.m., the old elevator activated by itself. Its rusted cables groaned slowly upward, then downward again. Even though electricity barely worked in most of the building, Ava checked repeatedly. Nobody inside. No explanation. Then came the smell. A strange sweet scent drifting from beneath the lobby floorboards late at night. Not decay. Not mold. Something older, like burnt perfume. One evening while removing damage near the reception desk, Ava noticed a faint hollow sound beneath the floor. She tapped again. Definitely hollow. But before she could investigate further, her phone rang. Daniel. She almost ignored it. Instead, she answered. His voice immediately softened. You sound tired. I'm okay. You sure? A long silence followed. Then Daniel quietly asked, Why do I feel like you're hiding something from me? Ava looked across the dark hotel lobby, and for the first time, she almost told him everything. But fear stopped her again. That same night, a storm rolled over Blackthorn Hollow. Rain slammed against the windows. Lightning illuminated the hallways in violent white flashes. Around midnight, Ava heard piano music. Faint, slow, coming from the ballroom upstairs. Her stomach tightened. The ballroom piano had no strings left inside it. She had checked days earlier. Yet the music continued. Ava climbed the staircase carefully. Each step groaned beneath her weight. The ballroom door stood partially open. Inside, moonlight spilled across ruined tables and ash-covered floors. The piano sat alone near the far wall. Silent now. But something else caught her attention. Fresh footprints in the dust. Bare feet, leading behind the stage curtains. Ava pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Only darkness. Then lightning flashed again. And for half a second, she noticed a narrow hidden doorway built into the wall behind the stage, almost invisible beneath old wallpaper. Her pulse quickened. The door was locked, but one of Frank's rusted keys fit perfectly. Inside waited a narrow staircase descending underground. Cold air drifted upward, carrying that same burnt perfume smell. And somewhere below, something metallic clinked softly, like tools moving against each other. Ava descended slowly into darkness. The staircase led beneath the hotel into a hidden underground maintenance corridor. Old pipes lined the ceiling. Water dripped steadily nearby. Then her flashlight revealed something unbelievable. An entire hidden workshop, perfectly preserved. Shelves of watch parts, clock mechanisms, tiny tools organized carefully across wooden benches. It looked almost identical to Walter's old workshop. Ava stepped forward, slowly stunned. Then she saw the photographs. Dozens of them, black and white images hanging along the walls. Workers, hotel guests, a woman standing beside the ballroom piano, Evelyn Vale, and beside her, Walter Hale, Ava's grandfather. Her breath caught instantly. At the center of the room sat a heavy iron safe hidden behind loose brickwork. Inside were stacks of cash sealed in waterproof tins. Gold watches, jewelry, property deeds. Enough money to completely change her life. But the real discovery waited beneath everything else. A leather journal. Walter's handwriting covered the pages. Ava's hands trembled as she opened it. The truth unfolded slowly. Decades earlier, Walter secretly worked at the Blackthorn Hotel, repairing clocks and hidden mechanisms built throughout the building. The hotel had been owned by Evelyn Vale, a wealthy widow terrified of corrupt business partners trying to steal her fortune. So together, Evelyn and Walter created hidden compartments throughout the hotel to protect valuables during legal battles. But before Evelyn could reclaim everything, the fire happened. Most people believed she died inside. She didn't. She escaped secretly. And according to Walter's journal, she spent years returning to the hotel searching for one final hidden vault beneath the ballroom. The repeated guest entries suddenly made sense. But the final journal entry made Ava's chest tighten hardest of all. If you're reading this, Ava, then life probably became difficult again. I wish I could have protected you from that. But sometimes hidden things reveal themselves only when someone truly needs them. The hotel was never haunted, only lonely, just like the people inside it. Ava broke down crying underground beside the old workshop, not because of the money, because for the first time in years, she felt seen, even across generations. The months afterward were not magical. They were difficult, painfully slow. Ava used part of the money to repair the hotel legally, and safely most of the hidden valuables went through complicated ownership investigations. Some items belonged to descendants. Some became tied up in court, but enough remained, enough to survive. Frank helped repair plumbing. Local workers slowly returned. Tourists became curious about the mystery hotel on the hill. Ava turned part of the ballroom into a cafe using Eleanor's old recipes. The smell of cinnamon bread filled the lobby again for the first time in decades. And every evening she repaired old watches inside the restored underground workshop, just like Walter. Daniel eventually returned, not angry, not betrayed, only hurt that she suffered alone. One quiet night, they sat together on the hotel rooftop, watching fog drift across the lake. I thought if you saw how broken things got, Ava whispered you'd leave. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then gently said, Ava loving someone isn't loving them only when life looks good. She cried harder hearing that than she had during the Discovery Underground, because sometimes kindness hurts more than cruelty, especially when you forgot you deserved it. 2 years later, the Blackthorn Hotel no longer looked abandoned. Warm lights glowed through restored windows. Music drifted softly through the halls again. Guests filled journals with stories from their stays. Some still asked if the hotel was haunted. Ava always smiled at that question. Then she'd answer carefully. I think old places just remember people. Late one autumn evening, she stood alone in the lobby after closing time. Rain tapped softly against the windows, exactly the way it had in her grandparents' house years earlier. She looked toward the old concierge bell still resting on the desk. Then she remembered the frightened woman sleeping in her car, the woman who thought her life had already ended. And quietly, almost unbelievably, Ava realized something. The hotel had never saved her because of hidden money. It saved her because it gave her back a reason to stay alive long enough to heal. She gently rang the brass bell once. Its echo traveled through the warm halls. Not lonely anymore. If this story touched you in some way, subscribe for more slow burn mystery stories like this one. And in the comments, tell me something small you remember about someone you loved and lost. Sometimes the smallest memories stay alive the longest.